Hey guys, let's get more news about Warriors, but first, don't forget to subscribe and leave your like. Warriors rival makes significant move in signing best remaining free agent. The Golden State Warriors' task in the Pacific Division just got slightly more difficult with the Phoenix Suns landing the league's best remaining free agent in Tyus Jones. Jones has signed a one-year, $3.3 million contract with the Suns, according to ESPN's Adrian Wojnarowski on Saturday. It's a huge coup for the franchise, who continue to make the most of their limited financial flexibility this offseason. The 28-year-old is coming off a two-year, $29 million contract, with his recent production having suggested that another deal well in excess of $10 million per season was forthcoming. Jones averaged 12 points and 7.3 assists in 66 games with the Washington Wizards last season, shooting 48.9% from the floor and 41.4% from three-point range. Instead, Jones has chosen to take a one-year prove-it deal with the Suns, much in the same manner as Gary Trent Jr. did in signing with the Milwaukee Bucks. The 9-year veteran joins Mason Plumlee and Monty Morris as valuable additions on minimum contracts for Phoenix this offseason. Jones had been floated as a potential option for the Warriors, particularly as the offseason developed and it became increasingly more realistic that he'd accept a one-year, minimum contract. There's no indication at this stage that Golden State was ever a possible suitor, with little doubt that Phoenix's lack of genuine point guards opens up far greater playing opportunity for Jones. Outside of starting point guard and 2x MVP Stephen Curry, the Warriors appear comfortable in handing the bench unit to impressive 21-year-old Brandon Podziemski. Last year's 19th overall pick recorded 13 assists across his 2 Summer League games in Las Vegas, before he and Tracy Jackson-Davis rested over the remainder of the schedule. Podziemski could also be the key to unlocking a Lauri Markkanen trade though, with Jones no longer a potential backup option should the Warriors choose to relent and give up the all-rookie first-team member. 3-team trade pitch nets Warriors coveted all-star big for Kuminga, Moody, picks. The Golden State Warriors have been quiet assassins in free agency this summer, but they may still be able to turn up the volume before the offseason ends. Perhaps the best way for the Dubs to do so is to strike a deal for 2022-23 All-Star Lauri Markkanen of the Utah Jazz. However, talks between the teams have stalled for nearly 2 weeks as the sides continue to disagree on Markkanen's trade value. One way to reignite discussions might be to add a third team that could help facilitate all parties involved getting what they want. Eric Pincus of Bleacher Report authored such a proposal on Friday, July 26, involving the Sacramento Kings. In the deal, Golden State would secure Markkanen and a couple trade exceptions in return for Jonathan Kuminga, Moses Moody, Kevin Looney, Gue Santos, a top 5 protected first-round pick in 2025, a top 5 protected first-round pick swap in 2027 and a second-round pick in 2026 via the Atlanta Hawks. The Kings would secure Kuminga and 2 trade exceptions. The Jazz, meanwhile, would get 5 players, Moody, Looney and Santos from the Warriors along with Kevin Huerter and Colby Jones from the Kings. Utah would also acquire 5 draft assets. The move creates something of dizzying effect in all its complicated patchwork. However, the important outcomes for the Warriors are that they would land Markkanen without surrendering multiple first-round picks or Brandon Podziemski, the second-year shooting guard who is likely to battle Anthony Melton for a starting spot alongside Stephen Curry. Pincus noted Golden State's reluctance to trade Podziemski after the number 19 overall pick in 2023 started 16 of 74 games and averaged 9.2 points, 5.8 rebounds, and 3.7 assists. He also shot 38.5% from behind the three-point line on 3.2 attempts per night, according to Basketball Reference. Furthermore, Podziemski is playing on his $16.2 million rookie contract for the next 3 years. That affordability could prove crucial if the Dubs trade for Markkanen and must pay him north of $50 million annually over 4 consecutive years beginning in 2025 to 26. Markkanen will earn just over $18 million next season on the final year of his current $67.5 million deal. The Jazz can offer Markkanen another 4 years at a maximum of $209 million on August 6 when the 7-foot forward, who averaged 23.2 points and 8.2 rebounds with the Jazz last season, becomes extension eligible. His production last season came on the heels of an All-Star campaign the year prior, in which Markkanen scored 25.6 points per game and hauled in 8.6 rebounds per contest. Markkanen's situation is unique because he must sign on the dotted line in Utah on August 6 precisely, or the Jazz won't be able to move him ahead of the trade deadline on February 6, per Brian Windhorst of ESPN via the July 26 edition of the Brian Windhorst and the Hoop Collective podcast. The date of August 6, which is the first day Markkanen is extension eligible, is exactly 6 months ahead of next season's deadline. By league rules, no team can trade a player before and/or on the deadline date if he hasn't been under contract for at least 6 months. Windhorst added that several sources around the NBA have told him Markkanen will become a more attractive trade asset if he signs an extension in Utah because he will no longer be a potential rental player, but rather locked into a deal for the next 5 seasons. Tim McMahon, Windhorst's podcast co-host on Friday, said he doesn't believe Markkanen will ink the deal on August 6 just so the Jazz can include him in trade talks over the next 6 months. As such, the Jazz either need to deal Markkanen at some point over the next 8 days or come to an agreement with him and a trade suitor, such as the Warriors, to ink Markkanen on August 6 and move him the same day. To do so, Markkanen would need to be on board with the move, while Utah and Golden State would need to have the parameters of a deal fully ironed out. Warriors unlikely to trade Kuminga or Podziemski for Markkanen, valuing their key contributions highly. The Golden State Warriors are reportedly cautious about trading Brandon Podziemski or Jonathan Kuminga for Lauri Markkanen. Team Governor Joe Lacob emphasized their importance, noting that both players emerged as key contributors in the previous season. Despite Markkanen's long-standing presence in trade discussions, there's no strong indication from the Utah Jazz that they are willing to part with him. ESPN's Tim McMahon discussed on Brian Windhorst and the Hoop Collective podcast that the Jazz aren't actively shopping Markkanen, only considering a trade if an exceptional offer comes their way. Markkanen, on an $18 million expiring contract, could be highly sought after if the Jazz decide to re-evaluate their long-term strategy during the 2024-25 season. He is eligible for a contract extension starting August 6, which, if signed, would restrict his trade eligibility until the next offseason due to NBA rules. Mark Stein reported that if the Warriors pursue a trade for Markkanen or any significant player, Kuminga would be the likely trade piece over Podziemski. So far, Golden State's trade offers for Markkanen have included Moses Moody and draft picks rather than their key young talents, Podziemski and Kuminga. Kuminga's potential contract extension complicates his trade situation. Coming off his best season, he's eligible for a lucrative deal up to $224 million over 5 years. Last season, he averaged career highs in points, field goal percentage, and rebounds, showcasing significant development and raising his value as a player. Podziemski, the 19th pick in the 2023 NBA Draft, also played a crucial role for the Warriors as a rookie. He provided consistent scoring, with 9.2 points per game and impressive three-point shooting, along with 5.8 rebounds per game. His emergence further solidifies the Warriors' reluctance to include him in trade negotiations, highlighting his value to the team's future. And you, fan? What do you think of the situation of Lauri Markkanen? Leave your opinion in the comments.